Why wasn't Aaron to go into the most holy place whenever he wanted? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Leviticus on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Leviticus chapter 16. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 10. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Leviticus chapter 16, beginning at verse 1. Now the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered profane fire before the Lord and died. And the Lord said to Moses, Tell Aaron your brother not to come at just any time into the holy place inside the veil, before the mercy seat which is on the ark, lest he die. For I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat. Thus Aaron shall come into the holy place with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering, and of a ram as a burnt offering. He shall put the holy linen tunic and the linen trousers on his body. He shall be girded with a linen sash, and with the linen turban he shall be attired. These are the holy garments. Therefore he shall wash his body in water and put them on. And he shall take from the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. Aaron shall offer the bull as the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house. He shall take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one for the Lord, and the other lot for the scapegoat. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell and offer it as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement upon it, and to let it go as the scapegoat into the wilderness. We have spent the last 3 chapters dealing with some rather uncomfortable topics concerning skin diseases and discharges that come from our bodies. These topics, while uncomfortable, were important to discuss because these things caused a person to be unclean under the law. While this may not seem important to us because we don't live under this law, it should be. For today we live under the spiritual law of Christ and serve the same God. Can we approach God if we are spiritually unclean? No, we first need to cleanse ourselves of our sin, and then we can approach a holy God. Whether that means becoming a Christian in the first place through obedient faith and baptism, or if we are already a Christian, by asking Him for forgiveness when we sin, we need to consider our spiritual cleanness today, just as Israel had to consider their physical cleanness under the law of Moses. All of this segues nicely into the 16th chapter. We have read already in Leviticus in numerous places where what we might call a regular sin sacrifice was offered. What animal was sacrificed and when depended on different circumstances, but sin sacrifices were required. However, on one day each year, there was a special day of atonement in which sin sacrifices were offered for the whole nation. What made this day special is what we are going to be discussing in this chapter. These instructions were given to Moses following the death of Nadab and Abihu in chapter 10, which simply gives us a general time frame for this, that being following the construction of the tabernacle and the consecration of the priests. What God told Moses was that he was to tell Aaron not to just come in at any time into the most holy place in the tabernacle, which is behind the veil, the place where the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat was. What would happen if Aaron disobeyed this commandment? He would die, just as his 2 sons did for offering strange fire before the Lord. It is said that the Lord would appear on the mercy seat behind the veil. By this I don't take it to mean that God lived there permanently, but that His presence would appear there on this specific occasion, the Day of Atonement. On this special day, Aaron would appear in the most holy place, but he wouldn't appear with nothing to offer, for he was to come with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering. A ram was also to be offered as a burnt offering, though this would take place outside in the court of the tabernacle upon the altar of burnt offering. The process for this day was as follows. First, he would wash himself in water in order to be ceremonially cleansed for this duty. Instead of putting on his regular attire, the high priest's clothing that we discussed earlier on in this book, he would put on special garments for this day. It would be a holy linen tunic along with linen trousers, girded with a linen sash and a linen turban. Since they were all made of linen alone, if you were to look at the high priest, he would be dressed completely in white. For himself and the priests, a young bull was required for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. But for the people, 2 young kids of the goat were required for a sin offering, along with 1 ram for a burnt offering. If you recall from chapter 4, usually a bull was required for the sin offering of the people. But this was a special day and a special ceremony, so God chose to use goats for the sin offering for the people in this case. Verse 6 says that the bull is to be offered by Aaron here, but the passage also repeats this in verse 11, so what is probably meant is that the bull was presented in the tabernacle of meeting just as the goats were presented in verse 7. Following this, Aaron was to cast lots for the two goats. One lot was for the Lord, the animal that would be offered as the sin offering for the people, and the other lot was for the scapegoat, the animal that would be let go into the wilderness. We'll talk more about the scapegoat later on in the chapter, so we'll save those comments until then. Usually when we think of casting lots, it's a game of chance, otherwise known as gambling. However, sometimes lots were cast to determine the Lord's will. When this was done, there would be no chance, for the Lord would decide what was to be done, which is the case here. We'll continue with the ceremony of the Lord willing in the next episode. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Leviticus chapter 16, verses 11 to 19, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.